Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian from Kingdom Hearts Union Cross Nation. And today, we are going over the illustrated Halloween Goofy medal. I don't know why I'm doing this, to be honest. I'm sorry. For me, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning for me right now, so the fact I'm recording is just like, I'm so tired. So I'm just trying to get this over with. Anyways, we're going over the illustrated Halloween Goofy medal for today. I know I never actually got around to doing the illustrated Halloween Donald medal that we got just like a bit ago. But essentially they're going to be the same thing. By the way, for those of you who don't know, as you might see on my screen, I have all my available medals, as usual, up on my website. So you can see on the right-hand side, I got Illustrated Halloween Goofy going on over there. But yeah, if you want to check it out, go ahead and go to khuxnation.com. If you ever want to just go to my articles and read what I have here instead of listening to me babble on, go ahead and take a look at it. I pretty much try and list the same exact stuff. It's just, you know, on a website for you to look at casually and stuff. And I sometimes go in more detail about specific things that I do in my videos and vice versa. It kind of depends on what it is I'm talking about. So yeah, if you're interested, feel free and go ahead. Now, let's actually go into the medal analysis video. So Illustrated Halloween Goofy is a power upright medal, tier 7, AoE, has a max multiplier of 4.53, uses 7 gauges, and all he does is restore 3 gauges. So before I go into and take a look at my spreadsheets and compare it to the other medals and stuff like I usually do, let me just say a few things about this medal. This medal is a very high damage medal. So if you look right here at the total max multiplier, he actually has a total max multiplier of 13.59, which is actually really high for an AoE medal. Usually we see it around like the 11-ish mark. So to see it around the 13, like a little bit higher than the 13 mark, that's really good for an AoE medal. Now, obviously, it being 7 gauges is a very big turnoff. Like, ew, just like, it's so bad. The fact that it restores 3 gauges is a bit useful. So we're essentially only using 4 gauges. But the problem still remains the fact that, like, you still have to use 7 gauges initially and stuff like that. Like, it's just bad. That's why when it comes to the best skills that you want to use for this mod, you want to use cost reduction skills at all costs, unless you naturally are just using setups that have low costs anyways, in which case you could probably afford putting an attack boost like max skill on it. Maybe it lacks max and like Lux plus skill if you really wanted to, but for the most part you want to use the cost reduction attack boost skills for 2 reasons. One, obviously because 7 gauges is absolutely ridiculous and you shouldn't have to suffer for that. And the second one is you can actually take advantage of his own ability by using the cost reduction skills. So like, for example, let's say you have attack boost max and special gauge 2 on him. Not only will you only be using 2 gauges, but you'll be restoring 3 gauges, which will essentially net you an additional gauge that you restored, which is very valuable. So if you have it like that, where you can have a cost reduction attack boost skill on Illustrated Halloween Goofy, you can essentially do high damage and kind of consider him as a gauge refilling medal, which is very useful. And of course, because of the fact that he's a damage medal, he's a pure damage medal, you want to have any of the minus 60 defense traits. You want to have the Raid Boss trait if possible. And the only reason I have extra attack on here as a reasonable trait to put on here is because of the fact he has the restore 3 gauges ability. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't need extra attack. But because of the fact that he restores 3 gauges, like I said, if you have that cost reduction skill, you can take advantage of the extra attack and essentially restore additional gauges. So it's just one of those like very nuanced things depending on what you have. There's not really too much to say about this medal other than that, so we're going to go ahead and go into my spreadsheets that I always like to show off. So I took the liberty to highlight the medals already. He is essentially the exact same thing as Illustrated Halloween Donald, so I have them both highlighted. So I'm just gonna hunt them again. So like they're right here. In terms of score, I have it organized by score at the moment for the tier 7 medals. And in terms of score, they are pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole, right next to key art 14. But if you think about it, that kind of makes sense because of the fact they're literally only there for damage. So when it comes in terms of value, they score very low. But if you're looking for a pure damage medal, if we go ahead and organize it by the total max multipliers, boom. All right, so we organize it by the total max multipliers. They actually are amongst the strongest tier 7 medals that we currently have available in the game. One thing you also want to take note of that is that I organize it by total max multiplier. That is not considering, so this is only like taking into account like the guaranteed multipliers you're almost always going to be able to get off, okay? If we want to take into account the alternative total max multipliers, so say for example like the specific requirements for like different medals such as like HDP and the HD Final Form Sora and stuff like that, that's a different scenario. So if we organize it by the alternative total max multiplier, they still are really high up there, okay? They went down a few spots, but as you could tell, they got replaced in the top spots with the HD Final Form Sora, the 358/2 Days Riku, and the Kingdom Hearts 2 Leon. Those three pretty much all did the same thing. But even though they got replaced, take a look at this. Okay, so the Illustrated Halloween, Donald, and Goofy medals, they have a multiplier of 13.59. And those other three medals, they have an alternative total max multiplier of 13.8. So they're super freaking close. So that, at the very least, is worth noting. So like, in terms of setups, if you aren't able to take advantage of these three medals for their alternative total max multipliers, you can make sure it's a safe bet that you can use the Illustrated Halloween, Donald, and Goofy medals. I mean, to be honest, there's not really too much to say about this medal. The only thing I got left to say is that in terms of scores, I'm gonna go organize it by score again. Remember how they're back here on the bottom? In my last video, I believe I mentioned that when it comes to tier 7 medals, I've kind of noticed a trend. Any tier 7 medal that's around the 40-ish range or higher tends to be a really good tier 7 medal. And any tier 7 medal that is around the 30 or below score tends to be not that great. This is shown here on the spreadsheet. Like I mentioned before, Illustrated Halloween, Donald, and Goofy, they're literally just damage medals. The only thing they have on them that they can do is restore 3 gauges, which isn't a lot to say, to be honest. That's like almost nothing. That's like you better give me 3 gauges because you cost 7 type of thing. It's almost like a compensation rather than a bonus. And if we want to actually take a look at the other spreadsheets, Illustrated Halloween, Goofy, and Donald have a score of 27 point something something, okay? And when we go to the tier 5 section, it's also organized by score already. If we take a look at it, okay, we hit the below 30 mark near the top already, okay? And if we look near the 27 section, which is like right here, it's near the top of what a tier 5 medal would be. And that's not that's not very good. And that's kind of says a lot that like you're literally using a tier 5, like a tier 5 medal being called a tier 7. However, I will state, because of the fact that its multiplier is so high, I could probably warrant calling it more like a tier 6 medal. But in terms of medals, I would not really consider these medals as tier 7 medals. Based off like what I've seen and like all the number crunching and stuff, I would consider these medals more as tier 6 medals than I would as tier 7 medals, to be honest. And the only reason it's even being considered a tier 6 medal is because of the fact that its multiplier is so high and it can do so much damage. But I don't believe they should be worth being considered tier 7 medals, or tier 7 material, I should say. I mean, granted, the only reason their multipliers are so high in the first place are because of the fact they are tier 7. So, other than that, that was it for today, guys. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And hit that bell button. It's the best way to know when I upload a video. I always try to upload every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. Whenever possible, but I don't always do so. So hitting that bell button is the best way to know when I actually upload a video. But also, if you enjoyed the videos that I'm making, as well as if you enjoy my website, I spend a lot of hard work and time working on these things. Like, I literally work on these things whenever I have free time. I pretty much don't do anything else aside from my responsibilities and stuff. So even just like $1 on Patreon would help me out so much. I would really appreciate it. But other than that, my name is Brian from Kid Martini Cross Nation, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.